all right, we're going to do a segment I like to call Overrated Underrated.
Okay.
I'm going to throw a couple of topics at you. You tell me if they're overrated or underrated. You can pass if you want to.
Okay.
The topic du jour for everybody in learning,
Yep.
artificial intelligence,
Yep.
AI in learning.
Yep.
Overrated or underrated from your point of view?
Ooh, that's tricky. So overrated today, underrated 5 years from now. I think we're just getting into AI. And from a technology standpoint, I think AI is going to hit, from a business standpoint, for EA, there's a lot AI is going to do. From a learner standpoint, and corporate learning and business learning, I think we're not there yet. And someone's got to really crack the nut on what's the way in which that software, which is going to learn and react and is going to engage, is going to intelligently engage the learner. So I don't think we've cracked the nut on it yet, but I think 5 years from now, it's going to look very differently. That's my take.
What about the approach of competencies as a learning methodology, building competency?
Building competency or like competence?
The competency approach,
Yeah.
sort of, we set our competencies and then we sort of cascade everything around that, what we want people to be competent in.
It's on par. Is there an option for I think we're kind
rated.
of doing. Yeah. I think it's not. So I've seen in bigger companies they tend to play out more effectively than in smaller companies, because when you've got to do things at scale, you need frameworks and foundations to do things at scale with, and I think competencies provide a great ability to do that. Now, I've also seen where they're taking what I would characterize as too far. Right, too much detail, more than people can absorb, more than they actually can be used in an applicable way. I loved earlier someone was talking about just the real deep focus on outcomes and outcomes for the learner. And at the end of the day, it's got to go back to what's the result we're trying to get, what's the impact, and if we can leverage competencies to help us get there, if they become the foundational piece, great. When it becomes this gigantic spreadsheet with hundreds of definitions that no one can absorb, then it's no longer usable.
Right. So it's all in how you use it, that is, whether it's overrated or underrated.
Yeah.
All right. You mentioned this concept a little while ago when you were talking, but let's talk more specifically about it and whether you believe it's an overrated or underrated concept. Yeah. That's the concept of ROI.
Yeah.
In learning.
Yeah.
ROI in learning. Overrated or underrated?
I think it's underrated.
Okay.
I think that I think the traditional models are overrated. So in the smile sheets, those are way overrated. I think the idea of really getting to true ROI. So there's risk associated with it, right? So we approach it from a business case point of view, which is I'm going to build a business case of ROI, and I'm going to have assumptions built into the value that we see us creating, linked to the business, and I'm going to let you debate me on those assumptions. And when you knock all the assumptions down by 50% or 75%, we've still got a higher value per cost. And that's what we're trying to do in terms of building executive support. I think ROI is a great way to be able to talk to the business and engage business leaders in the things they care about. The risk is you can run a program that doesn't get an ROI. You can run a program that actually doesn't generate value. And then it becomes a question of, should we be running those programs? Yes, I think we should. But I think it's a question of understanding what are the goals and objectives. So I think it's underrated. I think we can use it more effectively, particularly in high-end leadership development and in sort of the high-touch programs. And for the programs that are more for the masses, I think you use different metrics to assess. We had a program called Hero Academy, which was fundamentally about getting every employee to listen to what our players are saying, right? So this was a program that actually put participants on the phone with customers as the customers were doing live service calls. And you got to listen in to the customer support person, and the CEO said, every person in the company is going to do this. We didn't try to go for what's the ROI for that. We said, we're going to make sure this happens, and then we're going to quantitatively measure how many people went through it. Qualitatively, we're going to get the stories of what was the impact, how did it affect people. So we didn't go for a hard dollar there, but I do think it's high value.
So ROI is more of a mindset than necessarily a methodology. Yeah. It's kind of how you'd approach it. All right, last one. The esports industry.
Yeah.
Do you believe the esports industry is overrated or underrated?
Oh, it's booming.
Booming in what way?
It's going. I think the idea of being a we internally joke about being participants, right? So you're participating, you're playing. People watching sports is massive. And as you start to get into a game and watching the games and seeing games played, it is so exciting and so thrilling and fun in the same ways for watching live sports that live sport fans are into it. The audiences are only getting bigger for these games, and the opportunity to watch them. You know, if you've never been to an event, it's hard to look at that and go, okay, I'm going to watch people play a video game. How cool is that really? But especially for people who play, think of anything that you do and enjoy and do well. If you have an opportunity to watch a master at it, how fun is that? Because I think that's really where we see the amp up. So I think esports is huge and growing. Yeah,
are you guys all familiar with the esports industry? So yeah, it's sort of like there's these professional teams, and maybe EA sponsors one. I'm not sure, but they will sponsor players of video games, right. And they will then go to a competition, and it'll be in a massive stadium with thousands of people watching them play the games. Yeah, it's absolutely blown up in the last 5-6 years.
It has, and people are making livings, being paid millions of dollars to be top players.
Yeah. So there's a career path for your son, and then you can go to dad. Hey, guess what? Yeah. You know. So all right, final question before we bring up Erica here. What, as you look at your career and your career path and sort of the things that you've learned along the way, as you look at this audience, what sort of piece of advice do you have? What's the one thing that sort of stands out to you as, if you do this one thing, let it be this? Yeah.
So I'll share two thoughts. One of the first things I did early in my career was as I joined the first company I went to lunch with the CTO. She took all the new employees to lunch from her group, and I asked her what was the one piece of advice, and she said, just follow through on everything you do. And for whatever reason, that stuck with me, and it's made a difference, right? Just being really high integrity on, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I'll communicate to you. I'll track with you so that you know it's going to happen. That's been super high value. The second thing I'll say, which is a later career learning, I've had a chance to work with and watch a lot of leaders. And the thing that I come back to, and I mentioned it earlier, this notion of filling people's buckets, which I really hadn't ever encountered, ironically, until I had a kid, is so powerful. The best leaders I see are not the people who are the most knowledgeable, the most savvy, but they are the people that they really do a great job of acknowledging and recognizing what everyone else is bringing to the table in a way that makes those people feel good, want to work with them, want to engage with them. It's one of the reasons I think I've been at EA for 10 years. I never planned to stay anywhere for 10 years. I was like, that's crazy. You go into a meeting, and EA is a high relationship company, right? It's all about relationship and connecting, and the folks there are fun, they're funny, they're smart, and they care, right? And they listen and they pay attention. So it's like you get into these conversations and you're like, wow, I really like this person. I want to do things for this person. And I've been amazed by the number and quality of high quality leaders at EA who are just so focused on that relationship dimension. They are so good at getting everyone around them to give their very best. And I've seen that as well outside. So that would be my other thought.
Right. Well, thank you, Brad, for taking time to share with us your perspective and journey.